Okay, welcome to Bhagavad Gita this evening, this beautiful Tuesday evening here. Welcome to you all. Thank you so much for giving me your association this evening. We'll continue with the Bhagavad Gita study. Last week was a very wonderful week. We had the Gaur Purnim festival, and it was a very wonderful festival. So I'm grateful to be back with you all now tonight. So let's begin with the 6th chapter. As we normally do, we start with our Bhagavad Gita reading with the chapter entitled Dhyana Yoga, or the Yoga of Meditation. And we'll start with our Sanskrit to put us in the mood of transcendence, okay? So this is text 40. And text 40 reads as follows. Okay. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Parta Naveha Na Mutra Vinashas Tasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krit Kaschit Durgatim Tattagachati. And the translation reads as follows. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Son of Prita, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. So this is Krishna's, we're picking up where Krishna is answering Arjuna's question. And what is the question that he's answering? Can anyone remember what the question is that Arjuna asked? Who can remember from 2 weeks ago? Let's see what kind of memory you guys have. Okay.
How to stop the mind, the turbulences of the mind?
Not exactly. Anyone else want to add? It's a very specific question. He says, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? Almighty Armed Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. That's Arjuna's question. He's asking, because they're in a discussion about meditation and yoga, particularly the eightfold yoga system, Ashtanga Yoga, which is a very difficult yoga system to follow. If you've read the Yoga Sutras, you get some inclination as to the nature of the Ashtanga system, the 8-step system. Therein, in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali says that it is yamas, niyamas. That means, things that you do externally, external behavior, and then yamas, niyamas, internal behavior. What kind of behavior should you have? What kind of environment, both mental and physical environment around you and within you? So yamas and niyamas, that means you have to control the external environment and the internal environment. Then asana, which is popular very much today, and asana for many, many people who practice yoga, that it's synonymous. That is what yoga means to them. Although that is just the tip of the iceberg of the yoga world. So yamas, niyamas, asana, postures, poses that you do in yoga, and pranayam. Pranayam is breath control. So these are like four external processes of yoga, and then the internal. Then pratyahara. Pratyahara means to draw the senses within. As we function in the course of our day, where our senses are going without, are they not? I'm seeing things, I'm hearing things, I'm tasting, I'm smelling, I'm touching. The senses are going out, extending to the objects of the senses. What does object of the sense mean? It means what are your eyes looking at? Like every day I go to our backyard, and some of you that have been to my backyard remember it's very beautiful. It's almost jungle-like, and now the flowers are starting to bloom all over again. So my eyes, my sense of sight is seeing the object of the senses. It may be the flowers that are there, the trees that are there, the bees and the butterflies that are buzzing and flying about. Those are objects of my vision. And then I hear. What do I hear? I hear my dog barking, or I may hear, again, the buzzing sound of a bee. That's an object of my sense of hearing. Smelling, what do I smell? What flower, fragrance, what jasmine do I smell, or hibiscus? Or that's an object of my senses. So that is what we are doing. Our senses are coming in contact with various things that we see, we hear, we smell, we touch, we taste. That's what it's doing. But in pratyahara, when we are in the process of yoga to meditation, we start to draw the senses within. When you chanting, if you do a meditation, if you do a japa, for instance, and you really try to hear the sound of the mantra and try to focus your hearing on that as your object, alambana. That's what Patanjali calls your object of meditation. He calls it your alambana. That's the Sanskrit word. So you really try to enter very deeply into that sound vibration, hearing. So that's drawing the senses within, and trying to do everything in relationship to preparation for the next, which is dharana. Dharana means concentration. So concentration is a little bit different in meditation, because concentration is kind of flickering. It's there, and then you can get distracted, and then you go back to trying to focus, and then you get distracted again. The next step, meditation, is when you're able to, out of practice, at doing your sadhana, which means regular practice, it means you can hold your concentration for a longer duration of time. And then that becomes meditation. When you can hold your concentration onto your alambana, or your object of meditation. For instance, those of you that practice bhakti yoga and do japa. So when you're able to hold your meditation on the sound vibration of the mantra that you are chanting in your japa, the Hare Krishna mantra for many of us, then when the duration of time is extended, how you're able to hear that vibration and keep that vibration fresh in your concentration, in your focus, then it's called dhyana, meditation. And then ultimately, when the meditation gets very deep and over an extended period of time, you are able to meditate on the sound vibration, extended period of time, and its entrance into samadhi. That's the eightfold yoga system, the Ashtanga yoga system that Patanjali talks about. So Krishna gave us some insight into that system, the mechanics of it. Now Arjuna is thinking, okay, I've performed all those austerities and I've practiced sadhana, etc. What happens if I lose interest? And I've seen in my journey on my path of spiritual life, I've met a lot of people who have, how do I say this? They come and they go. They do the practice of bhakti very sincerely, for a period of time, maybe 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and then some powerful influence of the external energy takes them away from that. And what is it? What is that powerful influence that can take us away? Well, one of the things that is spoken about by our previous acharyas, like Jiva Goswami, is that offenses. When you are you commit offense during your chanting. There's 10 offenses to the chanting. When you are offensive to other practitioners, when you are, offensive to when you go to the sacred place like Vrindavan and you commit offensive actions there, all of these things, offenses in general, can distract you and ultimately take you away. So this is what Arjuna is saying. He said, what happens if someone is taken away, that all what they've done, all the practice that they've performed, all the sadhana they performed, all the chanting that they performed, is it just poof? Does it like a riven cloud? That means a cloud that is blown apart by the wind. That's really what a riven cloud means. So is it like that? That everything I've done for 10 years or 15 years, it just disappears and there's no more benefit. And I just return to my previous mindset, which is materially absorbed. That's what Arjuna is asking here because it's a legitimate concern. Material energy is very, very powerful. The influence of the material energy, which is called the gunas, sattva gun, rajas gun, tama gun, they're very powerful influences, and they can be just drag us away, take us away from our path, our journey. Or another way you can look at it metaphorically, you can be walking the path, and then there could be a little offshoot of the path, and you decide to take that offshoot of the path. What I've seen in practice, that sometimes people get involved in other uh, types of self-improvement, for instance, losing faith that the process of bhakti in and of itself can purify the mind, stabilize the mind, and lead us directly straight on the path back to pure spiritual consciousness and ultimately put us in contact with prema, love, pure love of the Supreme. Sometimes we lose faith and then we get involved in psychology and this and that. And that's not wrong. I mean, it's not bad. But when it becomes more the interest than your sadhana, and then your sadhana begins to decrease, then that is what I'm talking about. That is the distraction. That is the tributary to the path you're going. It seems like spiritual, and that's one thing that people have to. Why we're studying Bhagavad Gita? Why do I emphasize the study of Bhagavad Gita so much, not only for myself, but I try to share that enthusiasm and that emphasis because we have to understand the terrain. We have to understand when we are actually taking the tributary rather than the main path, when we're starting to deviate, going off the beaten path, so to speak. And the way we can do that is by knowledge, that the knowledge that is contained herein in Bhagavad Gita. So how does Krishna answer that? Oh, am I going to be lost? And Krishna answers that by this text 40. He says, a transcendentalist, that means someone who's on the spiritual path, someone who is performing yoga and sadhana within yoga. The transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities. So when we're doing our sadhana, that is considered to be very auspicious activities for our well-being. Auspicious means that which is very beneficial for our well-being, our ultimate well-being. There's Shreyas activities and Prayas activities. Shreyas means ultimate well-being. Prayas means immediate well-being. That means it may have some influence now, prayas, immediate. You may get some benefit on it. And that's where the lure, with other kinds of self-improvement systems, the lure of it, there may be some immediate benefit to that. But the ultimate benefit of being able to focus your mind on your alambana, your mantra, your connection with the Supreme at the time that we are leaving the body. That's what Krishna says in the 8th chapter. We'll get to that. Krishna says, whatever the mind is thinking of at the point of death, that is what takes our consciousness, directs our consciousness. Have any of you ever been knocked unconscious? Have you had that experience? You've been knocked unconscious. Either you got bopped in the head or, even the experience of anesthesia in an operation.
I've been knocked unconscious competing in Taekwondo.
Right. So do you remember what you were thinking of when you got knocked unconscious?
Nope. It just
Yep.
happened quick.
Happens so quick, then you're all of a sudden, you're out of external consciousness, right? And now you're on subtle consciousness. So death is that quick. I mean, even if you're prepared, and when I mean prepared, it means you have a diagnosis, you have 6 months to live, et cetera, et cetera. There may be, to some degree, preparation for that. But the exact timing, unless you're a great yogi and you can actually leave the body, you can leave the body. Gokula Priya says she was unconscious many times. At your own determination, you can determine when you're going to leave your body. As in the case of the great personality in the Mahabharata, Bhishma, and he's also in the Bhagavad Gita. If you remember the first chapter, we were introduced to the various personalities, and Bhishma is one. He's called Grandfather Bhishma. He's considered like the grandfather of the Kuru dynasty. The two parties that are going to battle in the Battle of Kurukshetra in the opening chapter. Bhishma was so powerful a yogi that he was blessed with the ability to determine when he would leave his body. And also another great personality in the Mahabharata and also mentioned in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is Dronacharya, the great martial arts teacher of everyone, all the warriors there owe their knowledge of martial arts to the great teacher Dronacharya. That he was on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he was sitting in meditation, and he was destined to be killed by Drishtadyumna, the one of his adversaries. His son was destined. He was born. Drishtadyumna was born just with the express purpose of killing Dronacharya. So they say that Drishtadyumna killed Dronacharya, but in actuality, it's explained in the Mahabharata just before Drishtadyumna killed him with a sword. Dronacharya left his body. He departed. This is a powerful yoga. This is a powerful yogi who can do that. But this consciousness, this point in time, this is why we're doing sadhana, folks, so that we can train ourselves. Just like Jai Krishna said, he was knocked unconscious, and that was it. I remember when I think I told this story. I was playing football, and I was I was still living in Newark, New Jersey, so I was younger than 10, maybe 9, 8 years old. We were playing football, and somebody hit me right in the sternum with their head. They came barreling into me and knocked me out. And it was the same thing. I went out, everything went black. And that's it. So imagine that. That's just a little introduction, because you may be able to still breathe at that time, but at the time of death, the body shuts down. All the functions of the body shuts down. That's why it's considered very serious, this human form of life. It's a very serious uh, responsibility that we have. Have you ever been placed in a very serious responsibility and you feel that pressure of that responsibility? I know Sri Hari was in the Vietnam War, and he used to go out every day, pretty much every day on the boat there, the delivery boat there, where he used to deliver weapons and provisions to the troops along the various rivers. And every day he felt the weight of responsibility because he was shot at. He'd be going down the river, and all of a sudden, gunfire, and his boat could rip part of his boat up. Every day he would feel that for 2 years. So the weight of that responsibility, right, Shriyani?
The biggest part was having people stationed on my boat and having them be shot and killed.
Yeah, because one of your best friends, right, was the gunner. He was the machine gunner,
Right.
and he's one of your best friends, and he was killed right in front of you, right?
Right. And coming back, bringing bodies back to the base, taking supplies there, bringing back bodies.
So that was a constant reminder of the fragility of human life. And that's what the purpose, when we talk about, performance of yoga, the performance of our sadhana, we are trying to prepare us for the final exam. That is what the preparation is. Now, you may be in your 30s or 40s or 50s. I can see, from who's attending, usually that age group is there. But when you get into your 70s, folks, let me tell you, the bell kind of goes off every day. The bell of response, that heavy responsibility. What's going to be there? It goes off every day. So you can't do what you were able to do very easily. So this is what Krishna is saying here. A transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. So Krishna gives us that encouragement. You do it. Just do it. The old Nike saying, right? Just do it. Just be diligent in terms of your practice. Understand the degree of your responsibility. Spiritual effort is one, never wasted. Two, never destroyed. Three, never erased. Never wasted, destroyed, or erased. That means, what do I mean by erased? It means that what you do in terms of your spiritual practice, the benefit that you receive from that spiritual practice stays with you for an eternity. It is an eternal bank account that you are depositing in, as opposed to material activities, which you will receive karma for all of your material activities. Good karma, bad karma. But the result is not eternal. If you do something good, you receive a good reaction for what you've done good. You experience that, and that's over. So it doesn't last an eternity. Even some people feel comforted by the fact that I'm a good person, I give in charity, I help my neighbor. Yeah, those are all good things, no doubt. Those are all good things. And you will get good karma for being charitable, neighborly, friendly. You get good karma for that. But it does not have the eternal, does not stay with you an eternality like your spiritual activity. So Krishna says that. Never erased, never destroyed, never wasted. Karma may dissipate. Your material assets may vanish, but spiritual samskara persists across lifetimes. Did you ever wonder why? Let's just think. What was the first encounter you may have had with, let's say, a devotee, a Hare Krishna devotee? What was the first encounter? Let's think back to that first encounter. And if you had a positive reaction to that, why do you think you were put in contact with that? I mean, I remember my first encounter with devotees, 1971. I was just a junior in college. Yeah, I was interested in yoga and I was interested in meditation. I was already doing TM, Transcendental Meditation, for about a year. So I had some interest. But why did I get this Bhagavad Gita? And then, even more importantly than that, why did it catch my attention? It's because there are spiritual samskaras, spiritual impressions in your mind due to some kind of previous contact with spirituality. And then when you do it again in this life, it revives, it awakens that samskara, that impression. And then the impression may be very deep. And that's why, someone jumps right into it. I remember in my meeting with Sri Hari, when I first moved here to Boca Raton area, and I met Sri Hari at a kirtan, I remember, seeing that this person had some interest in spirituality. And then that was, almost 4 years ago now? Almost 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. And I've seen his interest just get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, because the connection, the contact, the inspiration, the samskara was there, present in what he's done in his previous life or even earlier life, what he's done in his year stay in India. And then it just keeps snowballing like that. So Krishna is saying the actions that one performs, they're never lost. Neha vikrama nashasti pratyavaya vidyate. That they always stay with you. Unlike material achievements, spiritual progress accumulates eternally. That's the law of spiritual conservation. Every sincere attempt at yoga leaves the spiritual impressions that are there. And now Krishna is giving his reassurance, right? He's giving his reassurance. Arjuna is worried. He's expressing his concern. And now Krishna is reassuring him. And then, Krishna will go on to say in text 41, the unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. So Krishna is first saying that you are born in a situation that helps you, right? A situation that is, you may take birth in a prosperous or pious family. Two main possibilities. So, what is the first possibility? You can go to the heavenly planets. Unlike in various religions, they say the destination, if you're a Christian or you're a Muslim or you're a Jew, destination is going to heaven. In yoga, and particularly bhakti yoga that we study herein, heaven refers to a place within this material world, like Hawaii. It's like a place that's really, really beautiful, a place where you have a longevity of life, a place where you have really good, strong, deep intelligence. It's the place of the demigods and the demigoddesses. So that is what heaven is referred to, the heavenly planets. And that's what it's referred to there. You go to the heavenly planets and you live a very long duration of life. But what is that? It's temporary. To stay in that situation due to accumulated merit here on this earth planet, even though it's a long period of time, it's still temporary. You still have to leave it. You still die. And still, the burden of responsibility is on your shoulders. You have to, understand that burden of responsibility is still on your shoulders. So this is, what Krishna is telling Arjuna, that you have to understand that the burden of the responsibility is there, and you may achieve the heavenly planets. You may, or you can be born into a family of righteous people or a family of rich aristocracy. So what does that mean? A family of righteous people means you're born into an environment which can facilitate spiritual practice. that probably, of the three that Krishna is mentioning here, the heavenly planets, the you go to the heavenly planets, the family of rich aristocracy, or the family of righteous people. Of the three, being able to be born into an environment that is very favorably disposed towards spirituality. Well,
ये
look
नहीं
at
कह
my
रहे हो,
son.
अकेले करो, मेरे साथ ही लग के कर लो।
Eh? You need to, who is that? Okay,
It is
mute.
very simple. Unmute, Varsha.
I did. Thank you, Coco Priya. So, three possibilities, right, that Krishna is discussing. Heavenly planets, then family of righteous people, rich aristocracy. So it's easy to understand. Like, for instance, Nrsingadev, my son, he was born into a situation. From day one, he heard the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. From day one, he only ate food or drunk his mother's milk from prasadam, foodstuffs that were offered, to God. He heard while he was in the womb. Gokula Priya read the entire Srimad Bhagavatam to him, and the Bhagavad Gita to him, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita to him. So this is what is meant by being born into a situation. Now, what he does with that situation, still, because he's an individual, he is an individual spirit soul and comes into this world with his own history. It's what he does with it. But look at the fortune, the ability to hit the ground running on a spiritual path. So that's why Krishna says, to be born in a righteous family or a family of rich aristocracy. So one may say, well, what does that mean, family of rich aristocracy? You can be born into a family that is very rich, but they can be, total sense gratifiers. But for someone who has the samskaras, the attraction to yoga, spiritual activity, not having to worry about financial situation can be a great relief. For instance, one of my godbrothers, his name is Ambarish. He is the great grandson of Henry Ford. So he was born into the Ford dynasty, the Ford motor car dynasty. And that family is very, very wealthy. And, he's worth millions and millions of dollars from birth. So someone can say, oh, yeah, he can really live it up. He can live in the big house that he wants, any house that he wants, any car he wants to drive, etc. But because he had sanskars, spiritual sanskars, as soon as he came in contact with Bhagavad Gita, as soon as he came in contact with his spiritual teacher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the attraction was there. And to this very moment, he has been serving Krishna with his millions. He has been giving millions and millions of dollars to build an absolutely gorgeous temple honoring Krishna and Radha in Mayapur. So that's what Krishna is saying here. That is the good fortune. Text 42. Or if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world. So that's what I was talking about, the rarity and the fortune of being born into a family that is already traversing the spiritual path. So Krishna says, you're not lost like a riven cloud. You're not scattered to the wind by the winds of time, and everything is lost and broken apart. So take heart, Arjuna. I remember my spiritual teacher once said, what is the um, what is the blessing of this bhakti yoga path? He said, it is always hopeful. Hope, he said, it is always hopeful. We never die. If we performed uh, spiritual activities in the course of our life, that's not lost. We'll be given another opportunity. We'll pick up where we left off. All of these things are very, very fortunate for us. And we have to see with eyes, vision of gratitude. Some people are so lost in life. They feel hopeless. They may not have a good financial situation. They may not have a good family situation. They may not have a good health situation, etc. But if you're the only thing you know and you're investing in is your material situation, yeah, then it can appear hopeless. It can appear hopeless. I remember one of the jobs I had in the course of my travels on the Kama Artha platform, earning money to support my family. I was a director of an assisted living facility in South Philly, on Snyder Street in South Philly. And you're familiar with old age homes, they're called, specifically assisted living facilities or nursing homes, etc. And I was a devotee, and so I had the awareness of the purpose of life and how to live your life. And Krishna put me in that situation. I could see that most of the people were good people. They tried to raise their family. They tried to be good citizens. They maybe went to church or the synagogue or the mosque or whatever. But they were only invested in their material life. And now when it was coming to a closure, they were very bewildered. Because when you invest only in your material life, in material things, by the blessing of time, a lot of those things you don't have the capacity to enjoy them anymore. You can't see very well, you can't hear very well, you can't even taste. I remember in the assisted living facility, it was called In-Town Retirement Home. That's what it was called. And I remember the biggest problem that I had to face on a daily basis was mealtime. Mealtime was the biggest problem because if they didn't like the meal, that was the highlight of their day, their meal. And if the meal wasn't to their satisfaction, then there was a big disturbance. Almost, the whole facility was in an uproar. So if these pleasures that we invest in when we're young are all that we know, then they're going to be stripped from us by time. Krishna says in the Gita, time I am, destroyer of all worlds. And that is why Krishna gives hopeful statements here. You do not lose the benefit that you've gained from spiritual practice. You don't lose it ever. You pick up where you left off. And if you are blessed with conviction, faith in what you are doing, if you are blessed with that conviction, that even when things start to fail, eyes get weaker, hearing gets weaker, etc., you still have the ability to be internal, to chant. There was one devotee lady, her name was Isha, Mother Isha. And I remember her because when I was in the temple in New York, she was an older woman. We were all younger. You know, I became a full practitioner of bhakti in 1972. So at that time I was 22 years old. But Mother Isha didn't come into, that practice until like she was in her 50s. So she lived a long life. She lived to be in her 90s, and she suffered from severe dementia at the end of her life. She was a very, very good devotee of Krishna. But do you know the two things that she remembered at the end of her life? The Hare Krishna mantra, and her home was Vrindavan. That was really the only two things that she remembered. So what happened is withdraw, 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 withdraw till her alambana. That even the memory was taken from her. Withdraw memory of what? Memory of TV shows that you liked or movies that you liked or, all the numerous things that we do in the course of our life. That memory, that blessing that was given to her, that was all taken away. Even I remember my mother developed a severe dementia at 85. She lived to be 92. And the last stages of her life, she didn't smoke anymore, even though she smoked cigarettes all her life. She forgot that she smoked. She loved watching TV, sitting for hours watching TV. She forgot that. So I had in her room, I had a tape, uh, a repeating of Prabhupada singing the Hare Krishna mantra. And when she passed away in a very stormy, winter stormy evening, 7:30 at night, and Prabhupada was there with her. So we can see the hope, the blessing that we have. And Krishna is reminding us of this. He says in text 43, on taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life. Krishna is saying you pick up where you left off. The revival of your spiritual development happens when you're in this situation, when you take birth in the family of transcendentalists. And again, he tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success. So we take our birth in a situation, like I said, that's conducive for development, and that is our great fortune. Text 44 reads, by virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. Again, Krishna's driving that point home. Nothing is lost. And now, at 45, and he says, Krishna says, and when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, being purified then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. So Krishna says it's a progressive march when one is practicing spirituality, when one is practicing their sadhana, doing their sadhana. And then the last two verses, which are very important verses, and then the last two verses which sum up the 6th chapter, which begins with a description of Ashtanga Yoga, and ultimately in the middle of the chapter, it kind of goes into the focus of more bhakti process. And now Krishna says in 46 and 47, Krishna makes a distinction. He says this: a yogi, he tells Arjuna, become a yogi, do your yogic endeavors. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. So what does a yogi mean? Arjuna is a warrior. What is he telling him? Go to the Himalayas? Didn't he say, don't go to the Himalayas? He's saying, be a yogi. Be a person who is connecting, using the human form of life to connect to the Supreme. And by virtue of that connection, love within the heart for the Supreme develops. And that love grows stronger and stronger. And the person who is in that position is greater. Krishna makes a distinction. He kind of shows the yoga ladder here. Greater than the ascetic. What is an ascetic? It's a tapasvi. That means those who perform austerities, severe fasting, vows of silence, living in austere conditions. That's a tapasvi. I remember once I was in the Himalayas and I met this one man, and he only had a loincloth on, and even if it was cold out, he wore nothing. He had dreads. He was an Indian man, maybe in his 60s, and he lived in a cave on the bank of the Ganges River. That's what he did. And all day he did his yoga all day. And he was intrigued to see a Western person there. And so we had quite a nice conversation. So an ascetic will live a very austere life, harsh conditions, vows of silence, severe vows they take, severe fasting. And their goal, the goal of being a tapasvi, austerity, is that it brings the mind and the senses under control. But the problem is austerity alone does not necessarily produce direct God realization. So it may bring the mind under control and the senses under control, and you can be a very good tapasvi, an ascetic, a person who performs severe austerities. But it doesn't necessarily mean you will become you God realized or connected with God. Then, what else does Krishna say here? Men of knowledge, jnanis. These are philosophical seekers pursuing realization through discrimination and study. Their whole goal, they chant the Upanishads. They also can, be very austere. They could sit for hours, chanting the Mahavakyas of the Upanishads, the different very powerful shlokas in the Upanishads, and meditate deeply on the meaning of those shlokas, like Aham Brahmasmi. Meditate deeply on that Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. tattvamasmi, all of these different mahavakyas, these powerful little short statements, which point us to the fact that we are not the body. We're something spiritual and greater and eternal. And they do that through severe study, gyanis. And they understand the distinction between the self, the atma, the soul, and the body. It's matter and there's spirit. And then ultimately there's the absolute truth that they focus on. The limitation of that is knowledge may remain intellectual without direct experience of the divine. In other words, it could be a very grand intellectual pursuit, still not coming in contact, not developing one's relationship with God. And the karmis, or the ritualists, they are engaged in ritualistic activities. They piety, prosperity, they seek heaven, the heavens, etc. But they don't transcend wanting to experience the karma phala, the fruits of their actions. The yogi, why Krishna is saying the yogi is the topmost? The yogi practices direct union with the Supreme through meditation. So their yoga, the literal translation of yoga means to link, to connect, union. So the yogi is considered the topmost because he has direct link with the Supreme. He can even converse with God, conversations with God. Why does Krishna place the yogi? That austerity they perform purifies the body. The knowledge they may gain purifies the intellect. Whatever rituals they perform purifies their actions. The yoga that they perform purifies consciousness. So that consciousness has a direct realization, a direct link to the Supreme. Therefore, become a yogi, Arjuna. Act in such a way that you will have direct realization, direct line or link or yoke connected to the Supreme. But then verse 47 makes a bold declaration. It's the icing on the cake of the yoga of meditation of the 6th chapter. Krishna makes distinctions. The yogi is most desirable to be a yogi. He's advising more than a tapasvi, a jnani, a karmi. Be a yogi. And then what does Krishna say? Yogi nam api sarvesham. Of all the yogas, yogi nam is plural for yogas. Of all the yogas, sarvesham, all. Madgate antaratma. You should whose inner self is absorbed in me. So of all the yogis, the yogi whose inner self is absorbed in the Supreme, in me, Krishna is saying. That is the greatest of all. Madgate na atmana, whose inner self is absorbed in me. This describes constantly being linked to the Supreme. Mind is absorbed in the Supreme. Heart is attached to the Supreme. Identity is centered around the connection to the Supreme Lord God. Then what does he say? Shadavan, with faith. Faith means deep trust, loving conviction, and surrender. Surrender means, Krishna, I am yours. That's what surrender means. Krishna, I'm yours. That I'm here to dedicate everything to you. That's why we don't even eat without acknowledging that everything that we have, having a mind full of gratitude, because everything, we come into this world naked, we leave this world naked. Everything that we come in contact with, any form of gratification, is coming by the blessing of the Supreme. And even with that mindset, even we come in contact with challenges, obstacles. That's also a blessing. And that's also something to be grateful for. Because if we possess that mindset of gratitude, we can see the lesson in the challenges. Not that we only desire to enjoy, because that's not going to happen in this mortal coil, this body. But even we can see the lesson in the challenges and be grateful for that lesson because it's helping us progress towards our loving relationship with the Supreme. So Krishna is saying that. Doesn't want blind belief. Faith is not about being blind. Faith is about being awakened, alert, conscious of your consciousness, and linking your consciousness to the Supreme Consciousness. It's not about blind faith. That's why bhakti has two siblings. Love and devotion also has the sibling of knowledge and vairagya and austerity. Those facilitate our development and our development of faith and our development along our path. And then Krishna says, bhajate. This is the most important word in this last verse. Bhajate means worship, serve, and love devotionally. That yogi who is able to have faith, conviction, worship me, serve with love and devotion. This indicates bhakti. Thus, the verse states, the highest yoga is the yoga of devotion and loving service to the Supreme Lord. And that's the conclusion of the 6th chapter, text 47. It's a wonderful verse and it's a powerful statement. And I'll stop there. We'll begin with chapter 7. Does anyone have any kind of question or comment or realization, any takeaway points that you would like to share with us? Please do.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes, you may. I love that
Well, first of all,
I love that beautiful painting behind you.
yeah, that was in Cartagena, Colombia, at Gopinda's restaurant.
Wow, I always knew you were a swinger.
First of all, thank you for tonight. A lot of the points you mentioned tonight, a lot of the messages I've been sending to you personally. I think you know what they are. So
Yes.
you cleared a lot of things up, and thank you very much. So my question is, we were in a spiritual world. We were in Vaikuntha originally, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we were jealous or envious of Krishna, and we were put into the material world. Is my understanding?
Yep.
I got to follow for that. So why are we put so many trillions of miles away? Why weren't we put in the next planet? Or like even like the Christians say, you go to purgatory for a little while, you learn your lesson and you come back. So then we're put into this material world with 8,400,000 species of life. Some of them
Mhm.
are very abominable. So
Right.
by me being jealous of Krishna, which I understand I was and probably still am, why such a severe punishment that it's almost like a predestined or punishment. Okay, you're going to go there for millions of years. And you're going to become a snake, a cockroach, and everything else because you're envious of my position. Isn't that a bit extreme?
Well, um, what puts us here is that we're attracted not to Krishna, we're turning our back on Krishna. So that requires rehabilitation. It's like when a person commits a crime, what do they have to rehabilitate? Hypothetically, at least. I don't know if the prison system works, but when a person commits a crime, they have to be put into rehabilitation, right? Material world is rehabilitation. And we go through what we need to go through so that we finally come to realize, hey, this is not going to satisfy me. I'm looking to enjoy without my relationship with Krishna. I want to become the center. And that's a pretty hefty desire to have to propel us all the way here. So, in order to be rehabilitated, eh, Krishna puts us in this situation. But the thing about it is, when Prabhupada was asked, how long will it take? He said it could take a fraction of a second. We're our worst enemies. We are given ample opportunity to get back to our natural position as loving service of God. But we keep beating our head against the wall. I always think of when a person is beating their head against the wall, and they're saying, I gotta stop this. I gotta stop this, I stop beating my head against the wall. But they keep beating their head against the wall and experiencing that pain. So when we're here in this material world and we're trying to enjoy and it's not working out the way we hoped it would, that we would be totally satisfied, totally, santosh, content, we may experience some pleasure out of our activities, but whether complete feeling of fulfillment is there, that doesn't happen. And then all of a sudden we come in contact with, you know, activities that give us some little insight, some little experience, because bhakti is experiential. Yoga should be experiential. Should mean when you practice your yoga, you should be experiencing something. In bhakti, even in the beginning stages, I've seen people come to kirtan. I remember this one lady, her name is Essie Castilla. And Essie, I was doing a kirtan at this yoga studio. I forget the name of the yoga studio. It was I remember where it was, Montclair, New Jersey. And we were doing the kirtan, and it was magical. Everyone was absorbed. And Essie had heard about kirtan. She was like a dancer. I think that's what she did, dancing. And she heard about yoga and kirtan, and she found out because of the yoga studio's advertisement that there was kirtan, and she came. And it was just a magical evening. I was leading the kirtan. Everyone was absorbed. About 20 people sitting there, and they were all chanting with great absorption. And she came in and she sat down, and she sat lotus posture, and she closed her eyes. And then I looked over, a couple of minutes later, and tears were flowing from her eyes. After the kirtan was over, I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "Yes, I'm fine. It was just so moving. It just moved my heart." So yoga should be experiential. And yoga, and particularly bhakti yoga, it's relational. So when we open up to a relationship, isn't it a fact when we come in contact and we open up ourselves to a relationship, whether it's a friendship or a lover or whatever the relationship may be, we open ourselves up to that relationship, then the connection flows, right? So what bhakti helps us to do is to open up our relationship with the Supreme. And then the flow, the mutual reciprocation flows in such a way that we begin to experience the wonder, the beauty, the awe of that relationship. And that's just the beginning. Because we progress, the more we continue, the more we develop conviction, faith in the process, in our sadhana, that's just the beginning. And it increases and increases and increases. So that's, Krishna gives us the opportunity to thoroughly give up the idea that we are the controller, we are the enjoyer, and assume our rightful position in loving devotion to the Supreme. We need that wake-up call. And when you take into fact that really the soul does not experience pain or suffering, take that into consideration, then why are we experiencing this suffering? Because it's all up here in the mind. The suffering is all up here. The pain may be a reaction. I mean, a mechanical reaction with nerve endings and all that. Pain may be there. But what you do with the physical pain or the emotional pain, etc., that's what causes the suffering. So yoga teaches us tolerance. One of the key verses in the Bhagavad Gita is in the 2nd chapter. Krishna says, Matra sparshasta kuntiya sitoshna sukadukada agama payano nityas tung titikshashva bharata. This tolerance, Krishna says, if you develop tolerance of the dualities of this world, the heat, the cold, the pain, the pleasure, the happiness, the distress, all those dualities. And what's the first definition that Krishna gives of yoga in the Bhagavad Gita is the 2nd chapter, the 48th verse. He defines yoga as samatvam. And samatvam means equipoised, equanimity, steadiness, stability. That is yoga. That is what we're developing, that kind of steadiness and stability, that when this happens or that happens, we're not thrown for a loop, that we remain fixed and convinced, and we cultivate the mindset of this has happened to me to teach me a lesson. And what is that lesson? What is that lesson? And then eventually it becomes revealed. Any other
I was,
questions?
I see,
Okay.
I just to continue that, I guess, this is not so clear. It's, I sit on the beach every day chanting japa, and I'm
I know.
watching today.
You send me all
No,
those
no,
pictures of you doing jump on the beach, trying to.
well, come on down. Come on down. There's a lot of devotees here would like to meet you. You were close in Puerto Rico.
Right.
But I was watching sand crabs, how they're struggling in the sand, and ants, and all these different creatures on the beach. So if I was that jealous that Krishna wanted to teach me a lesson, why couldn't he just give me a backhand and smack me? I mean, it's almost like premeditated that, these 8 million forms, I got to go through all these forms to retain a human birth because I was envious, which I understand I got to pay for that. But it was like, it was almost premeditated. Okay, you're going to be a snake, you're going to be a cockroach, you're going to be this until you finally get it. Why couldn't I just take a human form or whatever form other than all these dastardly forms, like a sand crab I was watching today?
Well, what you should be asking is, why did I leave Krishna? Why? Why did I turn my back? This is this is the backhand across your butt. To be in the material world, to be in the place where you can unlimitedly exercise your independence or your so-called perceived independence, only to come to the realization that your independence is meant to be exercised in a loving relationship with the Supreme. So it's to thoroughly convince you beyond the shadow of a doubt that you should be any other place than Goloka Vrindavan with Krishna, dancing, chanting, feasting, loving, and being loved. It's to thoroughly convince you. Does anyone have? Thank you so much, Jai Krishna. It was a great question and a real outpouring of your heart. I could feel it. uh, Anybody else would like to share anything that they may have realized during the course?
Hare Krishna.
Hey, Premarnava Hari Bol.
Yeah, I participated in some of those kirtans were like very good time in my life when you used to invite me to, yeah, you get like, we used to do some kirtans in the prasang was amazing also. So
Yeah, we had a good time, right?
thank you for that. Yeah. I also was appreciating the Sri Hari Prabhu was in Vietnam. I wasn't aware of that. And such a traumatic event. I like, appreciate his service.
Yes. We all do.
Not everybody can be standing strong, like, after something like that. I think it's
Yeah.
it's like a very, and especially when he said he was picking up bodies, it's just like picking up groceries. Like I can't imagine.
I know. It's really,
Yeah.
it. I think he's come to realize, and correctly if I'm wrong, Sri Hari, he's come to realize that the only shelter, the only hope is, to become a lover of God. That's it. And his years of austerity in Vietnam and afterwards, because he had to live. Not only did he live those 2 years there, he had to live with it afterwards. That kind of haunts you, right, Sri Hari?
This is very true. And, and that experience in Vietnam has affected my entire life,
Yep.
even today.
Yep. Yeah, it kind of alters your perspective, really changes the way you see things and the way you experience things. So yeah, we do thank you for your service. 19 years 19 years old. He was 19.
Wow.
I can't even imagine 19.
No.
I was a sophomore in college, and I certainly was not very mature at that age. But
It makes you grow up very fast.
I'm sure it does. One bullet that goes, whistling by your head will make you grow, a couple of decades in a second.
It's true.
Thank you for your appreciation of Sri Hari Premarnava. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
anytime.
If anyone has any other question or comment, we can go our merry way for the next week. You please have a happy, healthy, and holy week. I will be next Tuesday is the first Rath Yatra in Savannah, Georgia. So my wife and I were invited by the devotees there. It's actually a St. Patrick's Day parade that's going to include Lord Jagannath and the devotees chanting. So Savannah, Georgia, if anyone wants to come and join in on the fun. We did that. The reason why we're so keen on it is we were invited to the first Rath Yatra in El Paso, Texas, a couple of years back. And my God, that was so amazing. It was so amazing. The people were so friendly and warm and appreciative. And so we expect the same thing there. And we're going to go. And I will let you know whether I'm going to lead kirtan. So I'll let you know if I'm still standing. I'll give you a message that we're going to have I can do class from there because we are being hosted by a family there. So I'm certain I can do class. And if anything comes up to the contrary, I'll let you know. But I'll let you know one way or the other. And I do apologize for not sending out today. We've just been busy here, really crazy busy in our household. A lot of things going on. And before I knew it, the day was gone. So I apologize for that. I really enjoy sending you the personal invitations. So until next week,
Hari, Hari.
you got Haribo. I
Actually,
appreciate
I
Thank you.
sent it out yesterday.
you did.
Yes.
Okay. How many of you get Sri Hari's post? He posts every week religiously on
I see
Monday.
his posts.
You see it, Trish?
Yeah, I always get his posts.
Okay, great.
I
On
don't.
Messenger?
I don't.
Huh? You don't, Rose?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. You give him your contact info and he'll send it out. He doesn't send it out via messenger. How do you send it, Srihari?
Messenger.
Oh, you do. Oops. There you go. All right. So Premarnava wants to be included.
No, I think I get it. I get it. Whoever is sending me, I do get it
Oh, okay. Good, good. All right, good. I'm glad you guys get it.
on Messenger.
Okay. So we'll see you next week, hopefully by Krishna's grace. Until that time, Haribo.
Hari,
Haribo.
Hari.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Haribo, bye.
Haribo.
Bye.
Thank you, Lakshmi.